Thank you everyone for joining today. Today we'll be talking about how Foot Locker uses location to power its omnichannel experiences. For the agenda today, we're going to be going over a quick radar overview and then retail trends that we're seeing. Then I'll introduce Foot Locker and we'll jump into our conversation on how they're using location to help power omnichannel experiences. Wanted to start with a quick overview of Radar for folks who might be unfamiliar. We are a location infrastructure and intelligence platform. On the infrastructure side is our geofencing platform and our Maps APIs that developers use to build different location-aware experiences like store locators and trip tracking. And then on the intelligence layer side, we have out-of-the-box solutions that help turn your location data into real business outcomes across three main areas. So the first is going to be engagement, triggering the right message at the right moment. And then second is protection, so verifying users' locations and identifying fraudulent behavior. And then third is going to be operations, so being able to track deliveries, pickups, and workers in real time. And we work with a lot of many amazing retailers, and that's going to be the focus for the conversation today. But we also work across a lot of different industries like restaurants, gaming, travel, and logistics. And I think the conversation today will also be really relevant for some of those other industries as well. And I'm Gabby. I am an enterprise customer success manager here at Radar, and I have the pleasure of working with a lot of the great customers that you see here. And a big part of my role here at Radar is partnering with these different teams to really help them maximize the value that location can bring to their businesses and help solve the unique challenges that they face within their industries. And I get a front row seat to how some of our most innovative retailers are thinking about engaging with their customers. And I wanted to share a couple of key insights that we've been seeing in the retail industry over the past couple of months. The first here is going to be AI and geolocation. So as businesses begin to leverage AI to enhance their personalization strategies, they're looking to location data to be a key input into how they engage with their users. For example, they want to understand how they can use location to generate more impactful marketing campaigns and even start to predict customer and workforce behavior. And then the second one here is geolocation as an omnichannel lever. And so we all know that our omnichannel shoppers are going to be our most valuable and loyal customers. And retailers are really looking to increase the percentage of omnichannel shoppers that they have with location by really unifying their online and in-store shopping experiences. And finally, acting on real-time intent. What brands want to understand how they can act on these location signals, where and when it matters most. But they know that when locations and experiences are delivered at the most impactful moments, these can really help drive conversions and improve a customer's experience. So many of our retailers that we work with have been really interested in learning more about these topics, which is why I'm super excited to be sitting down with Foot Locker today. They've been one of the leaders in this space, consistently raising the bar for how retailers think about location and customer experiences. And one of the people who's leading the charge at Foot Locker in this space is Brittany Eby. Brittany, thank you so much for joining us today. Really excited to have you here. Would you mind giving a quick introduction of yourself and your role at Foot Locker?
Thanks for the intro, Gabby. I'm excited to be here and thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Eby. As Gabby mentioned, I'm a senior product manager at Foot Locker, owning the customer-facing iOS and Android mobile apps. My background is in product management, e-commerce, and omnichannel experiences that support product and brand discovery, both in-store and online. A major part of my work so far has really been about determining how digital experiences can enhance and support in-store shopping. Foot Locker, our mobile apps span across three banners: Foot Locker, Kids Foot Locker, and Champ Sports. And we serve customers globally across North America, Europe, and soon in June, we will also be in Asia Pacific, in Australia and New Zealand specifically. So we're excited about that. But yeah, I'm just really excited to be here and talk with you all about location and how it shaped our product journey over the years.
Thanks, Brittany. That's great. I know we've been working together for about a year and a half now. Would you mind giving the audience just a little more context on what you all were trying to solve for and how location originally became a priority for the team?
Yeah, so our digital experiences weren't really adequately acknowledging or supporting the in-store journey. and our customers didn't really understand why they should open the app while they were shopping in our stores. Even though the app had real value, it wasn't really clear or compelling in that moment for the guests to use the app. Without that motivation, they just weren't engaging. And we really didn't have insight into when app users arrived in stores or which locations they were visiting. So these were all the challenges that we were facing and trying to solve over the years.
That makes sense. Well, thanks, Brittany, and thanks for giving the intro. We can jump into our conversation on how, you all are kind of using location to power that omnichannel experience, like you mentioned. A couple of discussion topics that we'll go through today is just how you all are using geofencing to power those omnichannel experiences, some of the unexpected benefits and impacts that you saw from that experience, and then also how you're using location-based marketing to really engage customers in store. So we can get right into it, Brittany, with our first couple of questions here. So Foot Locker today, like you mentioned, is using geofencing to detect those store visits to trigger this in-store experience. Would you mind walking us through? You all launched the new app and store mode around the same time. Maybe just walk us through that journey, what the in-store experience was like beforehand, and what the gap is that you were trying to close with this experience.
Yeah, so before we had store mode, the app experience was the same everywhere, whether you were at home or in store. There was little to no in-store functionality within our mobile app, and there were no really clear transitions from online browsing to store shopping in a physical store. So that highlighted a few gaps that we were definitely trying to close. One being, that acknowledgement of when a customer is physically in store. And just realizing that we were missing out on a really high intent moment with customers that were most engaged and ready to shop with us. So those were the gaps. And then now, as we look at our current journey, we began launching a completely new app, which was exciting in itself. We rebuilt it from the ground up with all modern designs and front end technologies, making that overall experience first feel more seamless and up to date for our customers. And then shortly after that, we did prioritize store mode as being the experience we want to use when the guests arrive within store and having a trigger there for engagement. But really, our app behavior automatically adapts now based off location. Customers immediately feel that relevance and purpose when they open the app. And our guiding principle throughout all of that was just that we wanted to have the app respect where the guest was and behave based off of their location.
That's great. That's a lot of big changes all at once, but I think you guys kind of navigated that seamlessly, which is awesome. And then you talked a lot about, how store mode is triggering when somebody walks into the store and is really like respecting where they are located to show the right content that makes most sense for them. So would you mind walking us through, what actually happens when somebody walks into that store and what features might become available to them when they have store mode turned on?
Yeah, definitely. So as you mentioned, like the customer is physically walking into one of our stores, whether that's Foot Locker, Champs, or Kids Foot Locker, assuming, they already have the app installed on their phone and they have location services or Bluetooth services enabled. The app will detect store entry through radar, geofencing, and Bluetooth beacons. And then really what would happen is if the guests did have their push notifications enabled, they would receive a push notification welcoming them to the store. If they didn't and they opened the app when they were entering a store, they would see store mode get triggered automatically. The first thing that they would see is a location specific welcome screen, which welcomes them to that specific store. And then it's guided into the store mode experience. It has a nice animation once you continue into store mode into a dedicated tab in the bottom navigation. And then once they're in, there's a few different tools that they can use and leverage. One of them being probably our biggest feature, which is to scan a shoe barcode, where they can check size availability and send a try-on request to an associate directly. Which is super exciting. And then they can also send try-on requests through a browse type of functionality as well, which we call shop by size. They can use this to see in-store inventory filtered by their size, but they can also filter based off of other attributes as well, like color and gender. So that's really exciting for customers to be able to customize what's available when they're in the store mode experience. And then FLX Rewards is also huge for us. So we can also easily see FLX Rewards information within store mode. It really showcases the loyalty barcode, their points, the FLX cash that they can use for redemption at checkout, and they can apply that to their store order. But having that visibility up front really makes the rewards feel more real, and we've seen it encourage customers to spend more with us as well. So that's kind of like the first three things you'll see. And then if you scroll a little bit down on the store mode landing screen, you'll see any items ready for pickup from past orders. You also will see product recommendations based off of what's available in store. And a lot of those recommendations are based off of items that are already in your bag online or in your save for later. So we're really just showcasing products that they've already previously shown interest in and have saved for future purchase. We were really intentional about the features that we wanted to showcase within store mode.
Great. Thanks, Brittany. And I really like how you all worked the loyalty into the store mode. I think a lot of retailers have a hard time like figuring out how to make their rewards relevant for users at the right time. And I think this is like a really perfect way to do that. When somebody's ready to check out, they already have their loyalty points pulled up, and you're able to kind of connect those purchases as well.
Yeah, we've definitely heard store associates mention, customers using that and leveraging it. So we were excited to hear that in some of the feedback.
That's awesome. And I know you had mentioned that you have store mode live for all three banners in the US. So kind of what's the next step from here? Is the team looking to expand this internationally, add new functionality? What's kind of next for you guys?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, store mode is live today across our 3 US banners. This year, our focus is really just on learning from the US rollout and scaling the experience globally across Canada, Europe, and Asia Pacific later this year. And then next year, we would like to expand in-store recommendations, to include things like apparel and accessories that pair with a shoe that a guest is scanning. So once we kind of do our global rollout this year, focusing more on cross-category recommendations, we also want to think about some of the post-try-on communication. Right now, it's pretty simple. We just let the customer know that we're looking for their shoe in the back and to hang tight, but we would also like to just give a little bit more real-time updates and status of where their shoes are while they wait, because sometimes it can take up to 10 minutes, which can seem like a long time if they're in store. So we definitely want to enhance that post-try-on communication. And then lastly, I think our biggest focus both this year and next year will just be around driving awareness and keeping that as a priority. Since today, the experience is really largely associate-led with Stripers, which we reference as our in-store associates. Our Stripers are really educating guests in store on how to use the feature, and we want that to be a little bit more natural for our customers to use more on their own and intuitively. So those are kind of the big focus areas for this year and the coming year as well.
Great. And speaking of the Stripers, your store associates, I know that you all saw some kind of unexpected engagement and usage of store mode. So would you mind maybe talking through like what was the most unexpected way that you found folks were using store mode once you rolled it out?
Yeah, so the most unexpected thing when we rolled out store mode was just how organically the associates picked this tool up and started using it within our stores, which we saw again just being beyond its original customer first intent. So that was really interesting to see. We did quickly see associates referencing store mode in conversations with other Stripers, with guests. They were using it to track size availability, and they were even submitting try-on requests on behalf of our customers. But I think what this behavior kind of enforced for us was that the value of store mode was there because it was proving to be very simple, intuitive, and reliable enough to be embraced naturally in our stores and by our Stripers. So, seeing that was very surprising, but also really interesting as well as we thought about, how easy it was for them to adopt and start to use naturally and kind of fill some of those gaps that they were experiencing as well as associates.
Yeah, that is super interesting and a really positive like outcome that was kind of unexpected. And in terms of the experiences that they're using the store mode for, a little bit on how the store associates would have done these tasks like day to day before and how they're kind of doing them now with store mode.
Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with all the ways that they were accomplishing things before store mode. But before store mode, I do know that associates really didn't have an easy way to see inventory by size. And now with store mode, they can quickly help customers based off of size and color preferences as soon as customers walk into the store, which they've mentioned has been really helpful for family shopping, especially if there's multiple people back to school. you'll have families come in and they want all matching shoes going into the back to school time. And so having those size and filter capabilities were really helpful in that way. But then we also saw during peak holiday times where we'd often run short of handheld devices on the floor. And having store mode available on any device really gave us more devices naturally that had the same capabilities of being to send try on requests to the back room. So having that capability more broadly accessible really helped with, peak timing when we had a lot of customers coming in. And then on the operations side, I would say, based off of the conversations I've had with some of the store associates, we've seen that store mode has eliminated the need for printed catalogs and made inventory visibility much faster and easier, which was really helpful for some of their return to vendor requests, which I found interesting. Again, not like its original intent, but interesting to see that they kind of adopted it in that way for operations as well. What we, going into it, we knew that we didn't want store mode to replace associates, but more so we wanted it to become a support and storytelling tool for them and for our customers. And overall, I think what we saw is that just improved communication between our customers and associates in store by just having a common shared source of information that helps both sides get answers faster. And it definitely simplified interactions and removed a lot of uncertainty. And that reduced friction ultimately just builds confidence in the app as being a reliable in-store tool. So that was really exciting to see.
Yeah, that's amazing. Definitely a really interesting outcome there. And I know you mentioned before that you had kind of like done surveys with customers and tried to understand like what functionality would be best for them. And I think it's really interesting that it ended up being helpful across the board. Now that you know a little bit more about like how these store associates and customers are really engaging in the physical store, how do you think that will kind of inform how you go about future projects and just thinking about like how people are actually moving about the stores?
So I think, like I mentioned a little bit before, we found that customers definitely value being able to see in real time whether something's available in their size. That really builds trust and transparency. And what we heard from our customers is that they feel confident that what they see is truly what we have and we're not like holding sizes in the back. So that was really interesting to hear from the customer standpoint and see how that's providing value to them. But then I think, with this overall process, it really just taught us that both customers and associates will naturally adopt tools when they see clear value and opportunity to solve real problems. Knowing that our store mode experience does that, that really caused some of the natural adoption that we saw. But as long as, whatever we're prioritizing in terms of experiences, we want to make sure that it's solving real problems for both of them. And we learned the, importance of getting a concept into the real world early. We definitely tested and learned alongside our associates without needing everything to be perfect from day one. Obviously, there's a lot that we wanted to do that we couldn't do. Figuring out what that, first experience really looked like and what we got out there to learn was important. Making sure that we had all the features that we wanted without sacrificing some of the experience. But to do that, our team really had to spend time in stores and with our research partners. And we had to spend time just observing real behavior within the stores, talking with customers directly, validating those ideas through firsthand insight rather than just making assumptions. That way we knew what we were launching on day one to test and learn with was going to be really valuable still. So that was definitely something that we learned from the overall experience that will apply as we move forward and continue to build on it.
Great. Thanks, Brittany. And it sounds like you were able to work across a lot of different teams within the organization to kind of make this possible, which is really great. I think, when you have that cross-team collaboration, you end up coming up with a really like amazing product, which it sounds like you guys did.
We had a lot of support from various teams too, which was nice. Just being able to tag along with our research team and go into the store, being able to be part of the interviews was really special because it's not something we get to do on a day-to-day basis. And this was our first time building a feature that was really meant for the store experience. So being a part of that was really cool. And we're really grateful that the teams were so open-minded and brought us along for that.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, like those research groups, are you going into like a hand selected group to give a survey? Or are you kind of like going into the stores and just asking customers who happen to be in there questions?
Yeah, more the latter. We went into a couple stores with our research partners and we just interviewed customers in store that volunteered their time. And we just, rewarded them with a gift card for their time and service for answering some of the questions we had about the experience. We had a prototype that they could actually hold, within their hand and kind of play around with. So they got a really, close to real time experience with the prototype. And then we were able to see how they were using it and, engaging with it. So we were more so just, seeing what customers had available time to give us and answer some questions. And we spent about 5 or 10 minutes with them.
Amazing. Definitely valuable to, get in the store and actually understand that from the customer's perspective.
Yeah.
So that's great to hear. All right, great. Well, we can probably jump into our next topic, which is going to be focused on, meeting customers at the right place and the right time where they are. But wanted to maybe start with, it sounds like you all have, incorporated location-based marketing already into the store mode experience. Would you mind just, walking through how you've incorporated that so far, and how that's helping customers start to engage with store mode?
So right now we're really just focused on intent and timing with our location-based push notifications and triggering those when users are about a mile away from our stores just to surface relevant in-store promotions, especially tied to our FLX loyalty program, and special offers that really run on Fridays related to FLX. And then we also use these same location-based push notifications to introduce store mode to guests and encourage discovery of in-store features, as well as just check in with them after they've left a store to see how their experience was and to fill out a quick survey. But really the key for us is just being relevant at the right time. We know these notifications should act as entry points into the experience and not just be used for traditional campaign messages like we do for our general push notifications.
Amazing. And yeah, I think folks can see, the screenshot of that one notification that you were just describing there, where you walk in and you get the notification to actually engage with store mode. So beyond just that notification and maybe the FLX one that you referenced to, Brittany, what is the team kind of hoping to do next with location-based marketing? And are there other types of engagement that you're trying to drive?
Yeah, so beyond what's live today, we are going to expand our location-based marketing through even more geo-targeted push notifications tied to some more high impact moments. For example, in the month of May coming up, we have some notifications tied to World Cup, and we have some pop-up events in New York City that we want to, kind of educate those in that area about, as well as a Harlem Community Day in New York City. So those are going to be some exciting community moments. But we also plan to communicate when we have things like store refreshes or reimagined stores opening for those that are in the area, as well as key brand events such as we're having one for New Balance Gray Day. So we're excited about that as well. So a lot of exciting things coming up in May and how we plan to use location to communicate things going on in our customers' communities. And we'll also likely test just larger geofences as well and going up to 1,000-meter radius around these locations. So we can just drive even more incremental reach and engagement with success measured primarily through our click volume and our click-through rates. But ultimately, while we kind of move forward and expand how we're using our location-based push notifications, we do believe location-based experiences should still feel supportive and valuable and never intrusive to our guests who choose to share their location with us and choose to opt into push notifications. So we always keep that in mind that everything still remains guided by customer consent and the clear value that they receive in exchange for sharing location and push notification access with us. So that's always kind of top of mind for us and forces us to be a little bit more intentional with how we're using those capabilities within our app.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's definitely great that you all are kind of value driven and just trying to make sure that it's adding to the customer experience, and not just just paying them with notifications regularly, but making sure that they're actually relevant to where they're located and what their intent might be at that moment. So that's great. And I always, when I'm walking home from work and walking by the Foot Locker, I like to get the notification to come into store mode and try on some new shoes. It's a great excuse to do that. So definitely appreciate that. And it sounds like, you all are tracking engagement on these current notifications that you have live. I know we have the Airship integration set up. Curious to understand, other than just like the open rates that you're tracking right now, how do you go about like really making sense of that data and your other conversion metrics? And what does success look like to you and your team?
Yeah, so right now we're really focused on measuring overall engagement and its impact on in-store behavior, as well as ensuring we have reliable location data and geofences that trigger store mode. I would say Radar really has helped us build confidence in accurate store arrival detection. And like you mentioned, Gabby, we have that integration with Airship, which is our push notification provider within our app. And those analytics seamlessly flow into Airship, and we can measure things like app open rates and engagement. But we also follow up with guests. I had mentioned this earlier by sending them a push notification after they've visited a store and used store mode, and asking them to do a quick survey on their experience. And this has really helped us understand, their experience, and that serves as another key success metric for us, which is a little bit more qualitative, especially to see whether store mode influenced them to make a purchase while they were in store, or if it encouraged any continuous behavior of using the app or visiting a store again in the future. So we really just want to see overall how it impacts the lifetime value for that customer. But I think over time, we'll definitely shift more towards measuring store mode adoption, that repeat engagement, like I mentioned, and just ultimately how those behaviors drive future sales. And with the maturity of our customer data platform, we're hopeful we'll get there soon so we can actually start to tie store mode to store sales and attribution, which we're not currently doing. So we're really excited for the future of that and being able to, in a more quantitative way, say it's driving store sales and conversion in our stores. Yeah. So again, I think while our app it has more potential to have broader reach as we look at our overall customer base that represents both in-store and mobile app shopping. We know that while it's small, those customers do consistently spend more with us. Lastly, I just want to mention that we are going to focus on growing that customer base because we know that engagement in that area by both shopping in store and in our app is critical for long-term business growth. And ultimately, we know that customers that have both the app downloaded on their device and visit our store spend more with us annually. So we really want to lean into that and grow that customer base.
Great. Yeah, I think that sentiment is similar across a lot of our retailers as well, where they kind of know that population of app users and users who shop in store are super valuable and are trying to like learn more about these experiences to do exactly what you guys are doing, which is like grow that population of customers. Well, great. Before we jump into Q&A, just one last question for you, Brittany. Wanted to understand where you actually see location signals heading as a tool for retailers over the next couple of years, and if there are any opportunities that you think some brands might be missing.
Yeah, so I think the future of location is about providing context and shaping experiences based on where the customer is. The experience for someone near or inside a store should feel distinct from someone shopping at home. And this was an opportunity we were once missing out on that maybe other brands might still be missing out on that were, feeling very fortunate that we took advantage of. But over time, I think what this will do is just enable more natural app usage where digital and physical stores operate more as a single connected ecosystem rather than these separate disjointed experiences. So that was the biggest opportunity we saw as a brand that maybe others could benefit from as well.
Thank you, Brittany. Well, we can go ahead and jump into our Q&A now. So we've already got some folks sending questions in, but if anyone has any other questions, definitely feel free to send them in. I think we've got about 10 minutes left here. So let me take a look. Maybe we can start with one question. In terms of the rollout, I know it all ended up really successful, Brittany, and the functionality is working great for folks. But what was one challenge that you guys kind of faced as you were implementing this and testing, and how did you and the team kind of overcome that? And, would you have any recommendations for someone thinking about this type of implementation?
Yeah, we faced multiple challenges. I know it sounds like we did it very seamlessly, but there were a lot of challenges that we faced, especially around having accurate location coordinates. So right now we are converting our store address into geo coordinates within Radar. But because most of our locations are inside shopping malls, those coordinates didn't always map cleanly to a geofence within Radar. So we did have to do a little bit manual cleanup there. Some of our geofences weren't lining up how we needed them to. So we would even like expand the geofence a little bit more. Originally, we were thinking maybe we'd do like 50, meters, and we expanded that to 100 just to account for like a larger footprint. So that was one of the big challenges we saw right away, just cleaning up and adjusting the data so it would work better for our use case. Was a big challenge. And then another challenge was just overall like cellular connectivity in stores, particularly in malls where our stores are sometimes located on like lower levels of the shopping mall. That's something that we have limited control over, again, because it depends on like cell phone carrier and things like that. And while we do offer in-store Wi-Fi as a backup, sometimes the bandwidth isn't always there for a lot of people to hop on the network. So, I think, a combination of our data for store location as well as just like the natural ebbs and flows of connectivity within stores were probably the two biggest challenges that we faced when rolling this out.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think a lot of our customers also have a similar experience with especially like the location data. Not everyone has like the mall experience. Some of them do, but it's hard to get all of your location data in one place and ensure it's accurate and have it updated regularly. And I think you guys navigated that pretty seamlessly, although obviously it takes time to like get that data updated. Yeah, that can definitely be like a challenge when it comes to setting up the implementation. But really glad that you guys were able to work through that. I think that's great advice for anyone kind of thinking about getting started with the implementation as like a first step of what to look at. Okay, great. We've got a couple more questions in here. This one is interesting, Brittany. So, what, if any, hurdles did you have to overcome with store staff thinking that store mode was coming to be like a replacement as opposed to a tool, like you mentioned for them?
Yeah, so we did a lot of early trainings with our store teams. We spent time with them to provide training materials. We walked them through the prototype, and we started with a pilot store audience before we kind of expanded that a little bit more nationwide. And so, starting with the pilot and learning first about their concerns was really beneficial before we just like kind of handed it over to everyone with the training. And we learned a lot about, whether it was helping them or not helping them. And I think our training really was beneficial in kind of educating of like, hey, this is a tool to support our guests in store. We want you all to be champions of it, to use it yourselves and understand how it works. Obviously, we know that customers are still going to come in. They're still going to ask you personally for shoes to try on. And whether you use store mode in that conversation or not, is kind of up to you. But we kind of still reinforce the need for communication between our stripers and our customers in store, and how that was still very important to the core experience of store mode. While some people may use it just to send a try-on request, you still kind of have to interact with an associate that's bringing you the shoe. They have to come find you in the store. In the request itself, like the user can put their name and where they're located in the store. And from that point forward, it does require still an associate to bring them the physical shoe and to interface with that customer. So it acts as a tool, but the way that we kind of trained our associates and walked them through the experience, it was very clear that it was more so meant to help facilitate discussion rather than kind of be a replacement for them.
Great. Yeah, that makes sense. And how long did you kind of go through that training process for with the store associates?
Yeah, so we did training by region, and we kind of rolled out region by region over the course of maybe 2 months, 2 to 3 months. So we spent, about a week or two with them. They had the training at least 3 or 4 weeks in advance so that they could kind of, understand it before it was in their hands. So we spent that time with them, and then we kind of went region by region as we rolled out the training over the course of like 2 to 3 months.
Perfect. And we've got a couple questions in here about engagement. I think folks are really interested in, how much engagement you're seeing and what features are being engaged with most. So I'm sure you don't have the stats pulled up in front of you, but maybe if you could speak to like which features you're seeing are getting the most clicks and how you go about tracking that.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of visits overall. I think, since we launched in June of last year, I think we're close to about like 500,000 store mode visits, and a lot of those visits, I think it's about 80% actually engage with our scan and try feature. So we see the most engaging feature being that scan to send a try on request. We also see about 40% of those visits also use the shop by size. So while it's not as engaging as the scanning feature, we still see a lot of customers use that as well. So those are definitely like the top two features. And ultimately, that funnel to send a try on request is pretty high as well of users that do engage with that. Actually, then going through and sending a try on request is about 50%. So we do see like a lot of strong engagement there of those that are interacting, actually going on to send that try on request to an associate. So those are definitely our top two most used features. And of course, those are the ones at the top of our store mode experience as well. So it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, great. Yeah, and those are definitely very unique features too, which I think is really interesting for some of the other retailers who are thinking about, what features to actually launch. It's interesting to know like which ones end up getting the most engagement, and maybe for somebody new to store mode, that's like where you could start it with just like one of those features and then build up from there. Um, that's great. I think we've got time for probably one more question. So I would say, in terms of the rewards program, I know you mentioned that you all have kind of incorporated that into store mode. How else does the team plan to like incorporate this throughout the store mode experience and in notifications? And what's the impact that you're hoping to have on the rewards program itself?
Yeah, so kind of an interesting stat too with our mobile app is about 90% of our users are logged in with FLX rewards. So we know that our reach for FLX is really strong, and kind of leaning more into that in the coming year or two, I think will be really strong. We have seen that the mobile app is a really strong lever wherever FLX 2.0 is live. That's like the most recent version of our rewards program. And that version also offers things like FLX Cash. And so I think continuing to surface how points can actually be actionable into rewards will be really important, because while they can convert points to cash, they can also convert those into things like extra boosts for launch reservation, and raffles as well. So I think we just want to continue to educate on the FLX rewards program as a whole, whether that's like in store or online, and having that more tied to the mobile app, since we know our mobile app customers are our most loyal guest and they often are logged in and receiving those benefits. So we definitely want to think more strategically about like how we can incorporate that across the entire experience, not just within store mode, but within our online experience as well. And just further bridging that, having the stripers in store talk about it more with our guests, and to have that really be a key identifying point at purchase as well. Because if they're not identifying themselves at purchase as being an FLX member, they could lose out on those rewards and points, even if they're there for them to use. So we definitely want it to be more of a conversation point and for them to realize the benefits of their points earlier on, rather than post purchase when it's too late and they can't use them.
Yeah. And I know in terms of like a conversion standpoint, it's much easier for you all to track like how that engagement turns into a purchase in store and online as well by using the FLX reward. So I think that's like a great outcome as well. Well, thank you all so much for sending in all these questions. And thank you so much, Brittany, for joining us today and taking the time out of your day to go through all these questions with us. Like I mentioned, it's such a pleasure to work with you and the team, and looking forward to all the different projects that we're going to do together. And I have this QR code pulled up too. So if anyone would like to, learn more about Radar, feel free to scan this. We'll send out the recording afterwards for everybody. And yeah, thank you guys all for the time. Hope everyone has a good rest of their day.
Thank you for having me, Gabby. Thanks everyone for joining.